They spent years calling me the disappointment, the one who never quite measured up. I stayed quiet, building something they couldn't begin to imagine. I didn't want revenge, until the night they pushed too far. That was the last time they underestimated me. What happened next? Well, let me tell you exactly how it unfolded. The private dining room at the Langham Hotel in Chicago was elegant, ornate wallpaper, chandeliers like frozen waterfalls, but it felt like a velvet-wrapped cage. My father's 70th birthday was in full swing. Champagne flutes clinked, guests laughed too loudly, and servers glided around with silver trays. I sat near the far end of the table, quietly nudging roasted sea bass around my plate, half hoping I could melt into the brocade wallpaper. And here's to my son, Graham, my father declared, lifting his glass high. Senior Managing Director at Lockridge and Hill. Just like his old man. Applause rang out and Graham soaked it in like sun on a ski slope. His Breitling watch sparkled. His charcoal suit hugged him like it had been stitched onto his frame. Graham always fit the mold: Harvard, Goldman internship, a townhouse in Manhattan, and a picture-perfect wife who used to be on morning TV. Thanks, Dad, Graham said with a confident grin. Learn from the best. I took a sip of my wine, tasting the bitter edge more than the oak finish. I'd lost count of how many times I heard, "Why can't you be more like Graham?" Instead of following them into finance, I chose artificial intelligence. Built my own research institute. I invested in precision and silence in solving problems no one else dared to touch. And here's Maya, my mother added, her smile brittle as spun sugar. Still doing your little machines, sweetie? Neurorobotics and adaptive surgical systems, I replied, voice even. Our newest platform improves stroke recovery by 48% in early trials. Yes, Dad said, brushing me off with a hand. Still tinkering with wires. At least Graham picked a real field. The familiar ache flared, but I didn't flinch. They had no idea that the so-called tinkering funded a 250,000 square foot facility just outside Evanston. Or that our AI diagnostics were being piloted by healthcare systems in 6 countries. Did you see Graham's vacation home in Telluride? Mom beamed. 12 acres. Ski in, ski out. It's simply beautiful. It's modest, Graham shrugged, like it was no big deal. You should visit sometime, Maya, he added, as if I hadn't spent the last year split between our residencies in Kyoto, Oslo, and a data-secured lab in New Zealand. All registered to shell corporations. All discreet. Uncle Howard rose to give a toast. To Martin Langston, financial genius, devoted father. And to Maya, Aunt Carol added with the enthusiasm of someone remembering to thank the caterer. She's doing well, I think. I offered a tight smile. They'd find out soon enough. And then it came. That micro-expression I knew too well. The tightening of his jaw, the flicker in his eyes, discomfort, disdain, denial. My father adjusted his cufflinks and cleared his throat. Well, he said loudly, drawing attention. At least one of my children didn't waste their potential. The room fell quiet. A few nervous chuckles. Graham knows what it means to build something. A real legacy. He's made the Langston name mean something. Even by my father's standards, it was a gut punch. My mother gently set down her fork. Martin, that's a bit much, don't you think? No, Celeste. It needs to be said. He turned to me. Maya, you had everything. The best education. Endless support. And what do you do with it? Hiding out in some warehouse in the tech district. His voice sharpened. People ask me what went wrong with my daughter. I placed my wine glass down. Crystal against linen, barely a sound, but sharp as a pin in a balloon. What went wrong? I echoed. Yes, Maya. Your brother manages billions. Makes headlines. And you? Still playing with code. I thought of the agreement waiting on my desk. An AI architecture framework we just finalized that would change neurology forever. The $600 million in buyout offers I turned down this quarter alone. I thought of the contracts, the breakthroughs, the thousands of patients already helped. And I stayed silent. For just one more breath. Because what was coming next would change everything. No, Celeste, it needs to be said. My father's voice cut through the ambient noise like a scalpel. He turned toward me, his gaze sharp, his tone final. Maya, you had every opportunity. Top schools, connections, funding, everything. And what have you done with it? Playing tech visionary in some converted loading dock on the outskirts of Evanston. He leaned in, lowering his voice so that the insult would land more intimately. People ask me all the time what happened to my daughter. I gently set down my wine glass, the fine crystal making a soft click against the tablecloth. It echoed in the silence that followed. What happened? I repeated, not loudly, but with the kind of stillness that demands attention. Yes, Maya. While your brother is closing deals in Zurich and leading billion-dollar mergers, you're still, what? Writing algorithms in a warehouse. What they didn't see, what they never asked about, was the contract waiting on my desk at that very moment. A deal that would redefine neuroassistive technology on a global scale. Or the 3 acquisition offers I'd rejected in the past 90 days. Each starting at $500 million. And each, in my estimation, a gross undervaluation. Graham, my mother said softly, like she was reaching out from a place of practiced civility. Say something. Graham cleared his throat. She's doing fine, he offered, almost convincing himself. At least she's independent. Independent? My father scoffed. Is that our new word for irrelevant? He raised his glass toward me like it was some sort of challenge. At 38, your brother was managing institutional portfolios worth $1.4 billion. You're pushing 38 and still chasing some Silicon Valley pipe dream. You're not Ada Lovelace, Maya. I scanned the room. Faces that knew how to perform politeness, but whose eyes danced with judgment. They'd always laughed behind their wine glasses, certain I was wasting time while Graham racked up Forbes features in property in the Hamptons. My fingers moved toward my phone. For years I had kept my wins to myself on purpose. But tonight, that instinct gave way to something else. Not vengeance. Not bitterness. Just clarity. You want to talk about legacy, Dad? I stood slowly. No drama. No raised voice. Just calm steel. You want to talk about the Langston name? Before I go any further, if this story is striking a chord with you, take a second to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, what happens next is something you don't want to miss. Now back to the table. Maya, my mother whispered, her hand fluttering toward mine. Don't do this. It's his birthday. Exactly, I said. Let's make it memorable. I turned my phone screen toward them. The business account balance gleamed across the screen, $46,908,211.79. A gasp. A fork clattered onto a plate. What is that? My father asked, suddenly hoarse. I swiped once more. Langston Neurotech. Current valuation, $4.3 billion. You might know us by our trade name, LN Systems. We're the team behind the predictive surgical platforms featured in Wired last month. Graham's face shifted, recognition dawning in slow, horrified realization. Wait, you own LN? I built LN. He blinked hard. You're the one who turned down Samsung? They weren't thinking big enough. I scrolled again, showing them 3 competing offers: Samsung, Amazon, Meta. All declined. You're lying, my father muttered, though the screen was right in front of him. I tapped once more, opening a public document from a shell company tied to the LLC. It's all there. You just never thought to look. I learned early that silence protects vision. While you all dismissed my work as a hobby, I was engineering something that would outlast every hedge fund you've ever admired. The room fell completely still. No clinking glasses. No polite murmurs. Not even a breath. Just the quiet collapse of everything they thought they knew about me. But why didn't you ever say anything? My mother asked softly, her voice thinner than I'd ever heard it. I met her gaze directly. Because not once did any of you ask. Then I turned to my father. You wanted to talk about legacy in Chicago finance? That the Langston name should mean something. I paused, letting the weight of it settle. It does. Just not because of you. With that, I sank back into my chair, lifted my glass, and took a slow, deliberate sip of wine. Across the room, I saw my family grappling with a version of me they'd never cared to imagine. My father's expression shifted, something between shock and calculation. For the first time in years, he wasn't certain he held the upper hand. And across from me, Graham's polished composure flickered. He wasn't looking at his awkward little sister anymore. He was staring at a woman he'd underestimated, and now couldn't afford to ignore. I placed my glass down and spoke calmly. Among other things, our healthcare division just rolled out an AI diagnostic tool in 5 hospital networks. It's projected to reduce early-stage cancer misdiagnosis by nearly 60%. My father blinked slowly, as though hearing a foreign language. Then faintly, the Arbor Point building, that's Langston property. We appraised it at $300 million. It was, I corrected. We've since upgraded the structure, re-engineered the energy systems, and secured biotech zoning. It's worth significantly more now. I reached into my purse and withdrew a folded document. I'd be happy to show you the deed. My mother, trying to regain control of the moment, extended her hand across the table. Her diamond bracelet caught the light. Darling, this is incredible. If you had told us, we could have introduced you to people. Helped you. I pulled my hand back gently. Introductions. My voice was steady but cool. You mean like when you told the Whitakers I wasn't worth their time? Or when Dad advised his partners to steer their investments elsewhere because I was a risk? Her face drained. She remembered. The Whitakers had been ready to commit funding 3 years ago. But my parents, trying to protect me, convinced them I was a gamble not worth taking. We were just trying to shield you from disappointment, my father said tightly. Protect them, I corrected, my voice quiet but cutting. And protect your own egos. I gave a small bitter laugh. Those who did invest, their returns went up over 800% in 18 months. Uncle Howard, who hadn't said a word all night, suddenly leaned forward. Maya, my son's starting a crypto-adjacent platform. You two should talk. I didn't hesitate. No. His eyebrows rose. I don't take pitches from family anymore. But we're family, Graham interjected, the edge in his voice betraying his unease. That has to count for something. Does it? I looked at him, remembering the email he'd sent to one of his firm's partners, torpedoing my early proposal. You told them my tech lacks structure. 2 months before it was licensed by their biggest competitor. He swallowed hard. I didn't know. No, I said, rising from my seat and placing my napkin on the table. You didn't. Because none of you ever cared enough to find out. You were all so sure you had the formula, I said, steady now. The right job, the right firm, the second home in Aspen, the framed Ivy League diplomas. You assumed success looked like a tailored suit and an engraved business card. You never imagined it could be built quietly, by the one you dismissed. Sit down, my father snapped, voice regaining its sharpness. We need to talk. As a family. About your company. These opportunities. Opportunities. I echoed, lifting one brow. Let me guess. Now that the girl in the corner turned out to be a billionaire, suddenly the robot thing deserves a proper conversation. Don't be like this, my mother said quickly, fingers curling around the stem of her glass. Your father's just trying to understand. We all are. It's a lot to take in. I swept my eyes around the room. Cousins who laughed at me behind closed doors. Aunts who never invited me to their charity galas. Uncles who told their sons not to date girls too obsessed with computers. Now they looked at me like I was some cracked open vault, spilling secrets they'd suddenly decided had value. Not out of pride but calculation. You want to know the truth? I said, pulling my purse closer. I used to fantasize about this moment. Proving you all wrong. Forcing you to see what I built. I paused, breath even. But now that it's here, I don't care anymore. Your approval stopped mattering years ago. Maya, wait. Graham stood, trying to keep his voice calm. There might be potential synergy between your work and some of our firms. Strategic collaboration. Synergy. I laughed once, soft and sharp. That's rich. This from the man who once told a room full of investors, I was too emotionally attached to my prototypes to be scalable. I didn't mean. No, I cut in. You meant exactly what you said. And now you want a seat at the table? Suddenly my garage hobby is worth integrating into your portfolio. My father stood now, pushing back his chair hard enough that it scraped the floor. That's enough. I won't have you hijack my birthday with this performance. If you've built something real, fine. But this attitude. My attitude? I shot back. You mean the same one you had when you called me a failure in front of our entire family 10 minutes ago? Or the one you've had for 7 years while refusing to visit my headquarters? Not even once. He didn't speak. For the first time, my father had no comeback. Just silence. That was when I reached into my purse, pulled out a crisp white envelope, and placed it carefully on the table in front of him. Happy birthday, I said simply. He stared at it. What is this? Something meaningful. He opened the envelope with trembling fingers. His brows furrowed. Then his eyes widened. The deed to the Lincoln Park Tower, I said. Where your firm rents the top 3 floors. Purchased last month through one of my subsidiaries. He looked up, stunned. Your lease is up in June. As of next quarter, the new rate goes into effect. Market value. No favors. You're bluffing, he said, voice thin. I'm not, I replied. I closed on the property last Friday. Check the records. S&L Dev Holdings, my team. Chaos broke like a wave. My mother gasped audibly. Graham's fingers danced frantically over his phone. An uncle asked for a copy of the deed. My father sat motionless, the papers limp in his hands. You can't do this, he whispered. But I already did, I said, my voice calm as ever. He found his voice again, almost pleading. You can't mean to treat us this way. It's not personal, I said, smiling. It's just good business. Isn't that what you always preached? The words hit hard. Not cruel, just unshakably clear. You're welcome to stay, I added. At the new rate. Or you're free to move. Though I'd suggest reviewing the ownership of your next office space carefully. I turned away from the table. For the first time all night, I was completely weightless. I paused, letting the silence thicken. Letting them all sit in the gravity of what I'd just said. Then with a small smile I added, though if you're considering relocating, you might want to verify who owns your next office building first. I turned to leave, my heels echoing softly on the polished wood floors of the Langham's private dining room, but a hand caught my arm. Maya, wait, Graham said, standing. At least let me take you to lunch next week. Just us. Sister to brother. No pressure. I looked at him for a moment, remembering the email he sent years ago that killed my first corporate proposal. I gently pulled my arm free. I'm afraid I'll be tied up, I said. We're finalizing the acquisition of Halberton Systems. His face drained of color. You mean, he stumbled. That's our biggest client. I know, I said quietly. The same client you steered away from my prototype, told them I wasn't ready. Funny how things work out. He took a shaky breath. Maya, don't do this. Don't worry, I replied with the same steel he'd once used on me. It's just business. Isn't that what you always said? I stepped closer to the door when my mother's voice followed me. Maya, she called gently. What do you want from us? I turned back and considered her, really considered her. For the first time, not as the mother I'd tried to impress, but as a woman whose vision of success had always been painfully narrow. Years ago, I might have had a ready answer. Validation. Respect. Maybe even something like love. But now? Nothing, I said. That's the beauty of building something on your own. It shows you what matters and what doesn't. Then I walked away. Behind me, I heard the chaos rising. Chairs shifting, murmurs turning to raised voices, the sound of an old order unraveling. My phone buzzed before I even reached the elevator. First Graham. Then Mom. Then half a dozen texts from cousins and second cousins who hadn't looked twice at me in years. All suddenly very eager to catch up. I slid into the backseat of my car. The office, please, I told James. He glanced up at me in the rearview mirror. Everything all right, Miss Langston? Better than all right, I said, exhaling slowly. I just gave my father his birthday present. Back at the office, my office, on the top floor of the Arbor Point Tower, I kicked off my heels and sank into my leather chair, overlooking the city. Chicago looked different tonight. Not colder, not warmer. Just clearer. My phone buzzed again. Mom, please call me. Graham, can we talk? Dad, call me. Urgent. I swiped them all away. I had better things to do. The acquisition briefs had just landed in my inbox. Our neural analytics suite was weeks away from launch, and projections showed my net worth was about to double again. A knock at the door broke my focus. Sarah stepped in. Your brother is downstairs, she said. Says he won't leave without seeing you. I raised an eyebrow. Graham. Sarah shook her head. No. Emma. I looked up at the monitor. There she was in the lobby, still in her cocktail dress from the dinner, only now her posture was fraying, her confidence threadbare. She stood stiffly, checking her phone, then glancing toward the reception desk, clearly expecting someone to fetch me. Tell her my schedule's full, I said without looking up. But she's welcome to request a meeting through official channels. Sarah gave a small nod and left. I watched the screen. Emma read the message, absorbed it, and I saw the moment she understood. This wouldn't be one of those family conversations where charm rewrites boundaries. Her jaw tightened. Then she turned and left. I leaned back and looked out over the skyline. All those years I let them define what success was: corner offices, Wall Street clients, polite applause at overpriced dinners. But those things weren't the prize. They were the illusion. Success isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about staying the course when everyone else is laughing and becoming so undeniable that silence becomes your signature. I picked up my phone one last time. Typed a short message to the family thread. Thank you for showing me that failure is subjective. Turns out so is success. I hit send. Then I turned off my phone and slid it into the drawer. There was empire building to get back to. And I had been underestimated for the last time. Success, I realized, isn't about noise. It's about knowing deep in your bones that you were right all along. I picked up my phone and typed one final message to the family group chat. Thank you for reminding me that failure is subjective. Turns out so is success. As for the rent increase, it's strictly business. Just like you always preached. I paused for a breath, then added. Oh, and Emma? That client your firm used to represent? They just signed with our legal AI platform through your main competitor. They're thrilled. I hit send. Then without another thought, I powered down the phone and slid it into the drawer of my desk. It wouldn't be following me into tomorrow. There were acquisition briefs waiting. International partnerships to finalize. Product launches to oversee. No more looking back. No more seeking permission to be proud. I turned my attention to the glowing proposal on my desk: technology that would reshape stroke recovery diagnostics in under-resourced hospitals. The kind of work no one at that dinner table could even begin to understand. Empires aren't built on handshakes over steak dinners or hollow birthday toasts. They're built by people who keep showing up, even when no one claps. Especially then. People like me. People willing to be underestimated until they're impossible to ignore. And I've been underestimated for the very last time. If you're still with me, thank you. Truly. Not because I need sympathy, I don't. I'm here to speak to the ones who felt it too. The ones dismissed, talked over, told to sit down and be smaller. Maybe you're building something right now, piece by piece, in silence. Maybe they call your dream a phase. A hobby. A waste. I see you. And I promise your moment will come. Not with applause from the ones who doubted you, but with the quiet power of knowing you were right. You always were. And when that moment comes, you'll realize what I did. Validation is optional. Belief in yourself? Non-negotiable. So if my story lit even a flicker in you, drop a comment. Share your moment of being underestimated. Or the one you're still building toward. Let this be a reminder that quiet strength is still strength. And if you want more stories like this, stories of sharp turns, of strength reclaimed, of legacies rewritten, hit that subscribe button. This isn't just my journey anymore. It belongs to every single person who was once called a failure and ended up becoming the future. So here's my advice. Bet on yourself. Take the risk no one else sees coming. And build your empire in silence. Because eventually even silence becomes undeniable.